Good morning and welcome to Irwin Insights 2020. My name is Marianne McDonough and it's my pleasure to moderate this session, DIO3, Modernizing Your Data Infrastructure with Snowflake and Irwin. We've got a really special guest with us today, Kent Graziano, the Chief Technical Evangelist for Snowflake. Welcome, Kent. And then Sam Benedict, who's our VP of Solutions Specialty. And we're really excited for this session. Snowflake is so hot and we know that people are going to be really interested. So without further ado, guys, I'm going to hand it over to you. Go ahead, Sam.
Thanks, Marianne. Handing off to Kent, actually, to start. He's going to take us through a little bit about what Snowflake is. Snowflake database, if you've not heard of it, is one of the hottest technologies on the market. And once Kent finishes his segment, I'm going to take you through a series of slides talking about Irwin's Data Intelligence Suite and how it can help you in implementing Snowflake and data governance all at the same time for smoother architecture modernization. Over to you, Kent.
All right, thanks, Sam. Thanks for the invite. Glad to be here. Happy to help with this great event that we're doing. So just a quick little bit about me. I am the Chief Technical Evangelist at Snowflake. I've been with Snowflake for just shy of 5 years now, from when we were just getting started out, and come with a background in the data space, having spent almost 30 years, really probably more than 30 years now in the data space, and over a quarter of a century working with data warehousing specifically. I'm a recognized expert in Data Vault and Agile data engineering, and now cloud data warehousing and cloud analytics. So I'm going to get started here and dive into the material. The really cool thing that we're seeing now is, the future's arrived. Gartner predicts 75% of all databases will be in the cloud by 2022. And, we're pretty much near the end of 2020 right now, so that's not that far off. There's a lot of things going on out there, and there's so much data. As Domo said here in their little slider, data never sleeps. And this was one of the best infographics on data that I've found out there. We have more data being generated per minute than most people realize. For example, we have 18.1 million texts per minute happening at the time that this survey was done at the beginning of the year. 55,140 photos posted to Instagram. That's per minute. That's an awful lot of data. Now here's a fun one, right? 9,700 Uber rides per minute. Well, nearly 10,000. And that was, of course, before the pandemic. I suspect at this point that's probably down a little, but everybody's using an app to do that. So that's generating all kinds of data. And then how about 4.5 million users watching YouTube videos every minute? Most likely that one's gone right up through the roof with, the pandemic and all people being home, along with this one from Netflix of 694,000 hours of video happening. That's crazy. Huge numbers. Everybody's streaming. You've got not only Netflix, but Disney Plus, Hulu, HBO. I mean, I even subscribed to Disney Plus myself during this thing. So these numbers are changing, and it's just getting bigger. And what that really has turned into, IDC did a study, and their estimates are that we're going to have 175 zettabytes of data by 2025. So we're just drowning in data. I never would have dreamed there was going to be this much data when I started off. My first data warehouse was like 10 meg, and then 10 gig, and then 100 gig. But now we're up to zettabytes. It's insane. And it's not just from traditional sources. It's coming from all over the place. Web apps like Uber, streaming apps like Netflix, IoT now. It's just data's coming from everywhere. And because of that, we've got to find a way to make it easier to build and manage and govern all of this data. The concept of data as an asset's not new, but till now it's been kind of difficult to make it a reality. Now, recent changes in our technology have changed the way we work with data. It makes it easier for us to turn it into actionable insights for the business. We had the rise of the cloud. So unlike our traditional platforms that are basically boxes with fixed limited resources, the cloud gives us the ability to have unlimited capacity, or near unlimited capacity really, to store and process all the data. And that gives us the opportunity to run huge number of workloads, very high performance. then there's been, as I just said, this explosion of data that's going to continue to grow in both sizes and variety, just like I was showing you before. But with all this data, there's just a treasure trove of insight if we're able to tap into it, of course. And of course, finally, the last change is the diversification and democratization of analytics. Arguably, everyone today is an analyst or a citizen data scientist. As a result, when, where, and how we do analytics has completely been transformed. And it's being pushed to every corner of the enterprise. The appetite for data is continuing to grow, and analytics really are becoming a central part of how every person works with data. And it's no end in sight, really. So to take complete advantage of the data today requires a new approach that's going to allow us to have some meaningful business results. First, you have to be able to get your arms around all that data to make it easier to get better, quicker business decisions. Centralizing data into a single platform reduces the number of hops and the number of silos that you have to go through before you can actually get access to the data and make it actionable. By reducing or eliminating the wait time for the data and the latency, you can get all the users all the data they need when they need it. That's really kind of the goal. And as a result, then they can more readily spot new business opportunities and make course corrections if issues come up. Next, the ease and use and flexibility that comes with working with data in a new way allows us to reduce the overall cost of how we create and scale data management and analytics. By creating a single place for all types of data, we are able to deliver performance while planning for scale without adding excessive costs that are inherent in some of the traditional technologies. And third, when we're able to better get our arms around the data, eliminate the costs, we can focus on delivering a great customer experience through data. Whether it's improving how we interact with customers, building better quality products, or making data accessible to both internal and external customers that need it, by leveraging data better to understand how they intersect with your business, we can dramatically improve the overall customer experience. Well, we found that in the past, a lot of our customers had to over-provision resources to handle spikes in workloads and thus pay for resources that sit idle most of the time. They struggled with siloed data stored in a variety of databases, data warehouses, data marts, data lakes, and all kinds of other systems, which often led to security and governance issues. Ingesting semi-structured data from like IoT and weblogs was a struggle on the old technology, in many cases just totally impossible. Any kind of data sharing, forget about it. It was slow, it's insecure, you're moving files around, you're running processes and hoping they don't break. And this has meant that companies couldn't really run analytics that they needed to increase their revenue and reduce the costs to their organizations. Instead, they were forced to use stale data, incomplete data, and still trying to do data-driven decision-making. So what does it really take to deliver the promise of the data in the cloud? It's really a unified platform with a single copy of data to support many workloads. Secure and governed access is important for all that data, no more silos, and deliver unlimited performance and scale regardless of how much data you want to load and how much you want to query, and delivered as a service so that you can focus on querying the data, not managing the data infrastructure. So Snowflake built a cloud data platform that's delivered as a service. It's the only data platform built from the ground up exclusively for the cloud and delivered as a service. It's a single platform that enables secure and governed access to all data and supports many workloads. It's the only solution that helps eliminate the complexity, cost, and constraints introduced by other approaches. It's available on all three major clouds, so AWS, Google, and Azure. So we can support a wide range of workloads from data warehousing to data lakes to data science, allowing you to deliver as much data as you need to as many consumers as necessary. We offer this simplicity in a single platform to have a single source of truth while enabling many different workloads. We started as a data warehouse built for the cloud, and people are still, of course, using it that way because it's across many of those sorts of use cases. So it's an alternative to the costly on-prem systems and some of the, I'll say, first wave of cloud or cloudified databases. You can use it as a data lake for ingesting structured and semi-structured data. You can improve data engineering, leveraging Snowflake's performance and isolated workloads to stream data ingestion and integration. For secure data sharing, which is really cool, it's a means to streamline how you work with partners and customers to share data quickly with no latency. But it also is an opportunity for you to monetize your data in a way you couldn't monetize before. For data intensive applications, you can use Snowflake as the back end, so the workhorse that's really going to power an analytics app. And with data science, we can simplify and drive performance for those complex workloads to run those machine learning and AI algorithms. So just a few data points about our cloud scale capabilities. Today, we have about 1.3 million users across over 3,000 customers. We have well over 250 petabytes of data under management, and that's petabytes, and that's compressed. With 3 to 5x compression, well, you do the math. It's a lot of data. We have over 89 petabytes of data being scanned daily and 515 million jobs running on a daily basis. One of our customers has over 15 trillion tables in one database. That's insane. You know, that's a governance challenge. That's where we got to have great tools like Erwin for our customers to manage these things. Another customer has actually over 41 trillion a table with 41 trillion rows. Yeah, it's a fact table. So those of you who are analysts out there, imagine doing analytics against a 41 trillion row fact table and having it perform, and they're querying it all the time. But so the question is, you know, how do we actually support that? It's all about our architecture. The thing that makes us unique is a groundbreaking new architecture, the multi-cluster shared data architecture, and it enables all these really cool features that we have. We separate compute from storage, so we allow you to spin up and down on demand independent compute clusters to power all your loads and queries without any contention. So you don't have any issues with concurrency. It's something we've always fought against in the data warehousing world, in the on-prem world. So when your job's done, these virtual nodes can be automatically turned off. So you're only paying for what you use when you use it. We're also ANSI SQL and ACID compliant and fully secured with end-to-end encryption. So all of this is managed for you via that cloud services layer. As I said, Snowflake's available globally on all 3 major clouds, and with our innovative global data mesh, you can now easily move, replicate, and share data securely in a governed way across the globe to any region or any cloud, from AWS to Google, from Google to Azure, and back again. So that's regardless of where the initial location of the data set is. So recent survey that we had done, we found out some of the benefits that our customers are seeing. And 84% of our customers have achieved a more competitive advantage by using Snowflake. 96% of the customers surveyed, they decreased their administration effort through the use of Snowflake because it's delivered as a service. And it's such a simple interface. They don't have to spend all this time setting up infrastructure, configuring disks, indexing, all of these things that DBAs do today when they could be helping find more data, helping the business use the data. Well, now they can do that with Snowflake. And from a risk perspective, 95% of our customers surveyed, they're able to better manage organizational risk and decrease the cost of their service. Now, Forrester's 2020 Total Economic Impact Report on Snowflake recently came out with some very encouraging numbers. When they're looking at this, they said across all the customers they surveyed, they were seeing on average a 612% return on investment. That's just mind-blowing. 50% faster time to roll out a business product. And one of the customers that I've worked with over the years told me they're now able to roll out new data products in 6 weeks. They become a totally data-driven, agile data engineering organization. And 75% reduction in effort for the IT support team, which means they can focus on other things. So I hope this gives you some confidence that moving your data infrastructure to Snowflake will help you gain some more value from your data. Across virtually every industry, customers are turning to us as their cloud data platform of choice to solve their data and analytics challenges. To date, we have thousands of enterprises using Snowflake on a wide range of use cases like the ones I'd mentioned earlier. The Erwin suite of products can help you manage all this data efficiently and migrate to the cloud more quickly. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to my good friend Sam, who's going to show you and tell you more about using Erwin DI suite with Snowflake.
Thanks, Kent, for that overview of Snowflake DB. Surely fascinating, huge cost savings, and it's no wonder that you guys have been on a meteoric rise to the top in the data industry. I've been watching it happen since the beginning, and it's been really phenomenal, unprecedented, I would say. So I'm going to take you through today. My name is Sam Benedict, by the way, Vice President of Solution Strategy here at Erwin, focused primarily on our data intelligence suite. You'll see in my credits down here, Kent had Knight of the Oak Table. I don't have an oak table, or I'm not a knight of anything, so I made myself Knight of the Buffet table. Appropriate. Not so much more in COVID with buffets going away. Data warehousing is my background. Been in the healthcare space, manufacturing, and today I've been working with Erwin in the DI suite product for the last 10 years roughly, advising clients and working with them to solve data issues with great tooling and a solution set that goes beyond just data governance into DevOps automation and all sorts of places. And we're going to walk you through a few slides and just introduce it. And then at the conclusion of my slides, I'm going to take you through a very quick overview, show you some of the application that you can explore at erwin.com. There's lots of resources out there. So when we think of Erwin, many people think of data modeling. And Erwin has expanded their modeling capabilities to include Evolve, which is business process modeling, and also enterprise architecture. We do have our traditional data modeler that almost everyone's heard of. In fact, I hear more often than not, yeah, I've heard of Erwin and I know what they do. Well, today we're going to talk about what they really do beyond the modeling, which is the data intelligence suite. And this is in relation to Snowflake in terms of what are the things that we can do to add value to that Snowflake migration. Kent spoke to all the reasons that it's valuable, the reduction in latency, the cost savings and return on investment, and even the maintenance goes down significantly in terms of the time that you spend on it. But how about getting there? We're going to talk about how we can help you get there and establish governance and lineage and all sorts of great things along the way using the data intelligence suite. Now, the Erwin Data Catalog Suite here on the center screen includes a mapping manager that manages metadata cataloging and mapping. So we're talking about data at rest and data in motion, and bringing those two things together so that we can see not only how the data moves across the architecture and data lineage views, but we can also understand where our impacts are, whether it's a master data management system, a data lake, or a Snowflake repository. We're going to be able to see where every attribute comes into the company, where it flows to, and how it's transformed along the way. Lifecycle management options include things like requirements management, release management, testing management, things that you would add to our stack to improve your speed and overall coverage of your governance program. Maybe not to start, but maybe it's something you grow into. The tool is very modular, and it's designed to give you the flexibility to start where you need to start and grow over the course of time as your level of data governance maturity improves. Now, we've also got reference data management, which is a big part of data governance, but again, maybe a secondary step for some, and some data profiling, which includes pattern-based analysis and easy access to all the cataloged assets so that we can go after those, not only see how they're constructed from an ontology standpoint, but also understand what that looks like in terms of the profiling report, pattern-based analysis, and some other things. Now, the right-hand side here in the orange, you'll see we have a business user portal and a business glossary manager. Our business user portal is going to be a place where any user can go out and see data lineage views, impact analysis views, glossaries, what we call a mind map, which is really a business semantic graph that brings everything together and gives the end user real context around how do these things connect? How does this business term or this tag, for example, like GDPR or CCPA, how do those things come together and represent the data in my architecture so that if I'm a reports developer or maybe a data scientist, I can go out and very quickly assess where things are, whether or not I trust them, and should they be a part of what I'm doing, whether it's a report or a data set that I'm about to run a model against. Your business glossary, multimedia, it's also going to include not just terms, policies, and rules, but also the ability to catalog all business assets of any kind in different formats. And what this means is we take it further than we used to in the data governance space and include things like data tags, data sharing agreements, all sorts of things that help us further catalog and protect all of our data assets, whether they're business assets or technical. We want to make sure everything gets centralized and connected so that we can understand it and protect it. Now, our data automation down at the very bottom here, you've got your standard data connectors and smart data connectors. The difference between the two is very simple. Standard data connectors are going to hit your database, CRM system, ERP system, and flat files and pull out the metadata. We're going to package that into our catalog in our ontology, which is system, environment, table, and column, so that we can read those things and leverage them for other things in the DevOps and governance process. And it's data at rest and data as is. And then, of course, our smart data connectors are where we're going to connect all of those source, target, and interim systems together using reverse engineering. So when we talk about things like SSIS packages and SQL procedures, when it comes to Snowflake, one of the first questions you're going to ask, yeah, we want to go to Snowflake. It's a smart idea, clearly. But how do we get there? How do we document all of this legacy information that we have? How do we take our very expensive hardware platform and move that into Snowflake without understanding how all that data fits together? Well, the answer is easy. We take it, we reverse engineer your stored procedure code, your ETL jobs, all of that, and auto document that into mappings that we can clearly read, understand the lineage, how it's all transformed and fit together, and then develop our plan for forward engineering into Snowflake. So this comprehensive platform will not only give you the place to put everything, it's going to give you the speed and the automation to take it from where it is today and get it into a usable format, out of the code and into the mappings, so that we can move that and understand it 100% all the way through. This is just a graphic representation of all the Erwin tools sort of fit together. Our model management feeds into our DI suite, which is under the category of metadata management. And of course, you've got your process modeling and architecture tools, all of that feeding together into what we call the enterprise data governance experience, which is a collection of all of Erwin's products in a collaborative solution set. So if you've ever thought about, branding different things and using different best-in-class tools, Erwin has a series of best-in-class tools. They all interoperate. It's not like the traditions of the past where we just buy things and bolt them together and they never really talk. And I say the past, but I mean, some of the larger companies still doing that, right? So here you've got a comprehensive collection of tools. They're interoperable. They share meta models in some cases. And it's very easier for us to take our models and push those directly into the data intelligence suite so we can continue to perpetuate that through the DevOps lifecycle. Excuse me. Leveraging our data models to accelerate DI, data intelligence, time to value. This is what I was just talking about here, picking up everything from our model mart and ingesting it as metadata into the data intelligence suite. This is going to give us that first step where we can start to understand what do our current models look like, how do we need to model that for Snowflake, and we can go about generating DDL and creating things automatically rather than having to craft everything from scratch and slow that overall process. So legacy models converted into future state models, ingested into the DI suite, where we can then pick them up and map and start to bring things together. One of the big issues, converting any database management system to Snowflake is, again, all of the details, right? Where are all the details in the transformations, all the systems that are feeding into the current state operational data stores and data warehouses and federations of marts? How much of that stuff are we pulling out and how much are we putting in Snowflake? And if it's all of it, do we understand all of it? So our goal is really to make that simple, take everything that we have in current state and our legacy systems, document it very clearly, and offer you a clean view of exactly what you've got today so that you know what you're moving to the future, right? In many cases, when we see architecture modernization, there are systems that aren't being used, there are reports that are decades old that nobody's looked at. There are machines that are running code that aren't being used by anyone in the organization. These are the kinds of things that we'll discover. So it's not just a migration and a modernization, it's really a house cleaning and a streamlining of your enterprise architecture. And that Erwin DI suite can help make all of that happen. The way we do it, overall in a nutshell, we're harvesting. So we're collecting everything from all around your data architecture. We're analyzing it to understand what are the things that are beneficial, what are the things that we maybe don't need anymore. We're structuring it so that we can fully see how things flow from start to finish. We're putting governance on that because when you can see it, you can govern it. You can tag things like sensitive data attributes for PII, GDPR, CCPA, and you can start to take a programmatic approach to understanding all the data that you're moving before you even move it, and it's not going to take you any time at all with the automation we offer. Finally, the visualization is going to give you the big picture, not just for the IT folks to understand what's happening, but also for everyone in the business who needs that context that says, hey, a picture is worth 1,000 words. In this context, a picture is worth 10,000 words because we're weaving together very complex architectures into very easy to understand lineage views and business semantic graphs, or what we call mind maps. So you're going to find real benefit in using state-of-the-art technology in making this sort of a migration. Now, we talk about our flexible business asset meta model. This is a mention of our business glossary. So as we're migrating to Snowflake, we're pulling in our enterprise glossaries, we're tying that together with the metadata that's flowing over, and we're able to show how things connect. And we do that with artificial intelligence. So on this lower left screen, in kind of small print, what we're doing is combing through everything in the catalog and matching it up with everything in the glossary. Whether that's a business term, a policy, or a rule, we're connecting things together and giving you a probability match that makes it much easier to build those associations than doing it from scratch. Also, fully configurable visualizations and navigation aids, easy to say. These are going to give you the ability to go across everything in the architecture. For example, on the top right, you've got your data lineage view. That's going to allow me to select, go down from a system to an environment, to a table, to a column, and select any level of lineage. And as I go down, I'll start to see more and more detail. This happens to be a column view lineage that shows these little red dots. That's going to give me access to all of my transformation logic so that I can understand how that data element is changing as it moves across the architecture, ultimately to the consumption layer in things like Tableau, Power BI, and MicroStrategy. All of those things will be very visible and easy to see for anyone in the organization. On the lower left, you've got your business semantic graph, or what we call the mind map. And this is where we weave together from a center point. So we're talking about, is my center point a business term, or is it a technical column, right? So I can see from a column outward everything that relates to it, or I can start with a business term and go out to everything that relates to it. And it's going to show me both a technical lineage of where things live, how they're marked and flagged with sensitivity, and also on the right-hand side here, we're going to see all of the business assets, the policies, the rules, the documents and agreements, anything that might be related to a specific program or a specific value. That center value becomes the center of the universe and gives us a real clear picture of everything around it. Intelligent sensitive data classification, another important aspect to any migration effort, especially in a time of data protection, right? We've got GDPR, we've got CCPA that came out of California. We're expecting any day now the Federal Trade Commission to come out with a new program for the US that standardizes our US data protection and data privacy laws. And when that comes out, we're all going to have a limited time to get with the program and become compliant. So this product is going to help you do that in a way that while you're migrating, you're going to be able to classify and categorize all of your data attributes so that you know which items are PHI, PII, GDPR related, CCPA related, or whatever the new program is. And there will be no question as to the sensitivity of the data as it moves through the architecture and ends up in your Snowflake database. That flag or that tag will carry with the attribute from the source all the way through to the consumption layer so that we can do reporting and aggregate views and understand exactly what's sensitive by repository, whether it's a MART, or an operational data store or your Snowflake database, you're going to be able to see where all of those sensitive points live. And because of that, you're going to be able to generate a sequence of ETL jobs that can then go out and update, modify, or delete that data for your compliance effort. So it's much easier to do that when you understand where it all lives. And of course, that's the end game. Hybrid integration and automation platform. This is really about leveraging our automation pieces. So we have the ability to do things manually. There are times where there is no pre-existing code for us to draw from. So we're going to be able to mock up things and do some preliminary mapping using our metadata, whether that's metadata that we've scanned from a source, target, or interim system, or whether it's metadata that we've created from scratch in a prototype fashion, and we're mapping things together to see how it'll ultimately look as a sample. Now, on the upper right, you've got just a sampling here, a little bit of small text, but things like ERP, CRM systems, cloud environments, data governance tools, just about anything and everything that you want to connect with, pull in, and centralize as part of this big picture is possible using our Erwin Smart Data Connectors. There's a massive library of those in inventory, and if you need a new connector, you're just a few weeks away from being able to use that. And that includes things like cloud technologies. So your Azure Data Factory and Glue and others are also available for those of you that have newer stuff that you want to inventory as you're making your changes and modifications. And finally, this is just a mapping view. I've got a Snowflake Data Vault here, and we can see sort of all of the rules and mappings that go with that. The Snowflake Data Vault is a slightly different spin on Snowflake. It's a Data Vault model represented in a Snowflake database, and we've got full programs around automating everything from the model to the DDL, and even generating mappings to populate the Snowflake Data Vault, the hubs, links, satellites, pit and bridge tables, all of it automated from start to finish. If that's of interest, you can find it on erwin.com, and you can register for a demo of that technology. It's pretty slick, and it's going to save you a lot of time and money while governing your data vault in the process of building it. Now, your self-service business user portal, this is really where the end state comes in, and what we're all trying to achieve is better data intelligence, better awareness across all of our user groups. So we publish everything that we do inside the tool, every mapping document, every glossary, every system, from the environment to the tables to the columns. An end user sitting in finance or data science or actuarial, they can go out, find what they need, become better acquainted and familiar with how the data is being leveraged as they're developing reports, as they're developing models to run against that data. It's all going to be capable of being viewed and explored through the business user portal. Now, there's also workflows and there's issue management, some other great things there that make that holistic end user experience very contextual, puts them in touch with the people who know the answers, the data stewards and those folks. So the ultimate end game here is not just making life easier for the IT teams, but really giving the business and the data stewards and everyone that has a role in handling and governing this data a place to go and find what they need when they need it. And this is dynamically updated. So when we talk about changing our metadata, updating our metadata, updating our mappings, the data in motion, all of that happens automatically. So you're never going to be out of sync, and the sustaining of this overall program becomes much, much easier. So to break this all down, fast track to migration, easily sustained data governance, Erwin DI Suite is really the way to get there, right? So we're gonna leverage our data modeler that converts your legacy data models to a Snowflake data model. We're gonna leverage our automation to reverse engineer and document everything in your legacy architecture. Every single piece of code, whether that's a SQL procedure sitting in an Atiza box or a series of SSIS packages or Talon jobs or Informatica jobs, it all gets documented. And then, of course, on the outbound side, once we've generated our model and physicalized it for Snowflake DB, we can then generate Snowflake SQL to populate that database, whether it's hubs, links, and satellites in a data vault fashion or some other database construct or model. We're going to be able to generate the code to populate it, and we're going to be able to track it from start to finish with full data lineage, impact analysis, and 100% certainty that everything from the legacy system that we intended to move actually got moved. And of course, sustaining it over time becomes easy. Every release cycle, we're able to recycle the code, pick up the updates, make all the changes, reversion your mappings, reversion your metadata, and then archive our older stuff so that it all stays in sync. And we can go back to the past if we need to and explore previous versions of any data or any asset. Now, deployment options are, as you'd expect, any and all, whether it's a cloud-based deployment, a SaaS deployment, or maybe you've got your own contract with AWS, Google, or Azure. All of that can be incorporated here. Or maybe you're behind a little bit, right? You've got a cloud strategy, but you haven't quite executed yet. You can install this on-prem. It's a database application. It takes less than an hour to install and configure, and it comes out of the box with a Tomcat app server, runs on an Oracle or SQL Server backend. Very easy to set up and get going. And as mentioned, crawl, walk, run is a strategy we embrace, so it doesn't matter how small you are or how large you are, this tool will start at any level and scale to the largest enterprises. Now, I'm going to take you into, very briefly, a demo of the tool, and then we'll come back for a brief question and answer session. So in the actual application, as mentioned earlier, you're going to see a full inventory of your systems, your data at rest, or your metadata if you prefer, in our system catalog, or what we call the metadata manager. You're also going to see an aggregate view of all of your sensitive data that will allow us to explore by system, drilling down on each and every attribute. If I want to go into a particular system and see how many attributes have a designation, like for example PII, I can come in and see the system name, the environment name, the table, the column, and all the designation information here. I can drill into that attribute from here as well and go straight into things like the column properties. These can all be enriched. I've got my extended properties, my data lineage view, which is going to offer me a picture of what does that job look like when I reverse engineer my Informatica job and I pull it in here and I want to see where customer ID flows through my system. I've got customer ID here, but this is up at the top left, dual view. I've got forward and reverse. If I want to isolate that view, I can simply select customer ID, and that's going to allow me to move across with all the other stuff in the background ghosted. I'll be able to see hop by hop how it's going from my vault to my lake to my enterprise warehouse. And I'm also going to be able to see all of the transformations that are happening. I've got an R trim happening here. Up at the top left, we've got sort of a fish finder technology that's going to allow me to surf through the overall view and get to the end here, where I can see that I'm feeding into Tableau dashboards and Power BI for my consumption layer. So this data lineage view can be simplified if I want to click on, for example, just straightforward lineage. That's going to take out all the dual lineage views. So once I've reverse engineered and documented everything that came out of the Informatica job, I'm able to see it here, and I'm able to see all the transformations along the way from start to finish. Now, we haven't got much time. If you're looking for a full demo of this technology, of course, go to erwin.com, easy to sign up. We'll spend an hour with you and your team, and we'll walk you through everything and talk about how does it relate to your architecture and your migration to Snowflake. So when we look at the screen here, you're looking at your impact analysis view. It's going to show me where I'm being used as a source or a target, this particular attribute, where it's mapped. All my mappings are down here in the bottom half of the screen, and I've also got an indicator of any other uses in my upstream and downstream impact, usage in a business rule, source extract SQL, or even a lookup condition. So any and all impacts will be here. In the past, we used to have to do pivot tables and spreadsheets and all sort of madness to get this kind of view. Today, it becomes much, much easier in the Erwin DI suite, and it's automatic, and you can rest assured that you found 100% of what's there. So for your GDPR and other compliance programs, your anxiety and your worry goes down exponentially. You've got associations and a mind map. The mind map is just a branch in a much larger picture. This is that business semantic graph specifically for customer ID. And if I want to expand that out up at the top right, I can expand it and see everywhere customer ID relates to a business term or business process. If I want to drill out further and I'm in a customer-driven organization, you can imagine the customer sample will have quite a few associations to it. And when I click on that, we see indeed it does. You'll also notice up at the top right here, my legend expanded to include any and all relationships. So I've got my tables, my environments, right? My business policies, my actors, my columns. Everything here is visible, and I can collapse that back just as easy. So if I'm an end user and I'm looking for details on this particular attribute or a business term or policy or rule, I'm going to be able to find those things because we're creating this tree from the ground up. Now, here's the metadata. If I open up our menu grid, you'll also see that we have the mapping manager. This is where we're talking about all of our data in motion. So when I want to create my Snowflake data vault, I've got all of my mappings here to choose from, my transformations that are being used in moving the data, any test cases that are associated, and then down below I've broken them out into folders for my hubs, links, satellites, and staging area. All of this becomes very easy to manage and monitor because we're putting it into logical groupings by repository, and all of our forward engineering and reverse engineering efforts become much easier and clearer when we can see where we're going to and from. If I click on a mapping here as an example, and this is just a sample mapping, off to the right-hand side, we have, traditionally we might have given our ETL developer a spreadsheet from a design mapping that they can code to. But in this state, we're going to be able to do things like smart connectors that will take us from all of our existing technologies, right, into our Snowflake environment. So we've got all of our traditional ETL tools here, even things like COBOL copybooks if we're really looking to modernize and it's been, I don't know, 20 or 30 years. We've got options to do that. And of course, from an ELT perspective, we're talking about extract, load, transform, scripting languages of any type, Snowflake, SQL, stored procedures, Oracle macros, etc. And of course, anything we can reverse engineer, we can forward engineer, and that even includes the consuming layer when you're talking about things like Cognos and Power BI, SSRS and Tableau, SQL Server, MicroStrategy, everything that you want to document from source all the way to report. We've got a way to reverse engineer and document the logic into these mappings so that we can get that dynamic read and show you that data lineage view. And lastly, when we talked about the consumption layer, the business glossary and AI matching, bringing that all together, you're going to be able to catalog just about anything you like, from a business term to a policy to a rule, and everything in between. So if I come down here, for example, into my customer operations catalog, I can query for customer sample. When I pull that back, I'm going to be able to see not only the definition as a pop-up here, what state it's in from a workflow standpoint, my data steward, any of the associations that it has, and then that larger mind map, the one we talked about earlier, where I can really see from a center point anything and everything. So we opened customer sample earlier, and we saw all the things it was connected to. This is a view, we were seeing it from the view of the data element at that point. So if I hit expand all, this runs both directions. So if I go back to where we were earlier, we were looking at our customer ID column, and we were seeing it in an environment called our enterprise data warehouse here. So in theory, we should be able to go here and see it here as well. So from customer ID, I can go right back from this interactive drawing. If I click on customer ID here, it'll take me straight back to my data lineage view that we looked at earlier, my impact analysis views. So you've got your fingertips on everything and anything. As you explore, there's no need to change from application to application. To change windows, we can drill in, drill up, drill down, and drill sideways and see everything and anything from the same window. So this contextual view becomes much easier to operate for not only a business user, but also for anybody in the data space, a report developer, anyone and everyone that might have a need to manage their data and to see where things come from and how they're transformed along the way. I'll stop there. This has been the review of the Erwin Data Intelligence Suite in conjunction with Snowflake, all the ways that we can help get your organization to a modern database platform that has really compelling savings across every aspect of running and operating a data platform. And we can get you there with data governance and visibility that helps you document your legacy systems and drive yourself, your organization forward with all the details of every data element, every transformation. And I'll pause for questions.
Thanks, Sam. We'll bring Kent back as well and move to the Q&A slide. Hey, that was a really great presentation, guys. Appreciated learning more about the Snowflake Data Cloud Platform in the beginning, and then seeing really how it relates to the Erwin DI solution at the end. You know, one of the things that I think is really so interesting is there's a lot of interest on the part of folks that are using Snowflake and looking at Erwin, and using Erwin looking at Snowflake, right? So it's this sort of beautiful marriage right now. Ken, I had two questions for you. The first was, you know, if I'm in the Snowflake world, what about my BI and ETL tools? Will they still work with Snowflake? So can you talk to us about that one?
Sure. I mean, the answer is yes. We have an open interface, very similar to even what you have in your data intelligence suite there. All the tools that you're able to connect to your traditional databases, all the ones that Sam listed off there as he was looking at the end-to-end in Mapping Manager there, all those work with Snowflake. We have a native ODBC and JDBC connectors, and most of the main tools in the industry have now created native optimized connectors to work with Snowflake directly. So, and that was one of the goals of our founders, is they didn't want people to have to necessarily change tools to adopt a better data platform. And so we've made it as easy as possible.
Absolutely, because that seems to be a byword for you guys just in general, right? Make it easy.
Yep.
And then, so if somebody's already got a Snowflake database, can they use the Erwin solution to essentially capture that structure and reverse engineer the code used to load it?
They can, absolutely. In fact, you know, it's not just about getting to Snowflake. It could be applying a governance program on an already existing Snowflake platform, just depending on how you got there. So we can help you get there, but we could also insert anywhere in that process. Whether even if you're mid-migration, we can still document all the code that's loading it, the structures, the models, everything can be done in the same form or fashion with the same end result.
Awesome. And so, you know, Sam, we always like to say that every data modeler customer is a data intelligence customer, right? Because we really believe that there's this abiding need for data governance, and that we know that the hundreds of thousands of data models that are out there today in the wild actually provide really significant metadata management and sort of jumpstart into data governance. So one of the questions is really around that data modeler to data intelligence, right? If we've got so many of our users that have been in that data modeling world for a long time, can you just review real quickly the connection between those two solutions? And clearly, in this world of Snowflake, both are in play, right? We've got a data modeler that's actually reverse engineering the schema, and then data intelligence that's bringing the governance into play once it's in the Snowflake Cloud Platform. But can you just talk from the Erwin perspective for a minute about how data modeler and data intelligence have come together in some of the recent releases?
Right. So one of the things I mentioned is that, you know, when you bring together two great technologies, it's important to merge them so they can share assets, whether that's data or documentation or what have you. And we have a connector now that connects our data intelligence suite to the data modeler, so that we can go right to our model mart and pick up every model that's there and pull it in directly as metadata, and then perpetuate that further into the DevOps lifecycle. So, and Kent will tell you, Kent is at heart, he's a modeling guy, right? It's his specialty. I've run into companies that they're not really sure if they need a data model. I think Kent would argue that you do, and you absolutely should have one for any governance effort, especially for a modernization effort, because you want to make sure you get it right the first time and you plan it out. The good news is, once that modeling effort is done, and those, you know, 4,500 customers we have worldwide on Data Modeler, they can pick up all that hard work and directly move it into the DI suite and continue on with very little effort. It's just basically point, click, and go, and it'll pull in all those models and the comments and everything they need to move forward through the DevOps process.
That's a great point. Ken, you want to kind of bring us home? Any final thoughts? And again, thanks for being our special guest today.
Sure. I mean, as Sam said, yeah, I'm really a data modeler at heart, and as much as the data lake concepts allow us to onboard a lot of data very quickly and make it available for data science and things like that, when we're trying to make business decisions, and especially if we're in regulated industries, having a data model and having governance around that model and standards is really of critical importance to getting the most value out of the data assets that a company has. And so I think the Snowflake platform allows us to bring all that data together in place, eliminate the silos, and then between the Erwin data modeling tool and the Erwin DI suite really allow us to put that governance on to, as Sam referred to earlier, meet those compliance regulations, whether it be GDPR, CCPA, or even HIPAA for those in the healthcare space, that it still remains of paramount importance, especially for maturing enterprises that really want to get the value out of everything that they've got.
Excellent. So again, I really thank you guys for a terrific presentation, and I think that we're going to hear great things from our attendees as well. So just a quick view to what's up next. This was the last presentation for today, but join us tomorrow at 10 a.m. When we start out with a phenomenal case study from Ultramobile. And their data governance in action. What they've done in a short period of time there is truly mind-bending, and I think you guys will really appreciate that. And then Sam will be back with our very own John Carter at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time with a session on powering your data lake initiatives. Don't forget that the solution booths are open. We've got booths for data modeling, data intelligence, and Evolve, and we've got a booth for our services folks as well. So stop by and chat with any of our experts, and the networking lounge is open for you to interact with other customers as well. So thanks again, guys. This has been a great session, and we appreciate your attending Erwin Insights.